Welcome to this explainer. Look, we live in a world that is absolutely obsessed with broadcasting every single minor detail of our lives, right? We're in an era where literally every daily routine is just put on display for everyone to see. But the source material we're unpacking today proposes a radical, incredibly stoic alternative, and it's called the art of disappearing. The core idea here is that to achieve massive, truly unrecognizable success, you have to step entirely away from the noise of society. You've got to enter a period of absolute, complete isolation. And to be clear, we are not talking about taking a quick weekend break or vacation. This is a calculated, deeply disciplined retreat into the shadows to forge a completely new baseline for yourself. So that begs the core question. What actually happens when you just disappear? Why is taking such a drastic measure even necessary? Well, the reality is grounded in basic human nature. People naturally harbor jealousy. It's just a fact. As you start striving for greatness, others instinctively compare themselves to you, and subconsciously, they kind of prefer to remain above you. Celebrating someone else's success is surprisingly rare, but resenting it? That's common. And look, this isn't something to be bitter about. It's simply an immutable law of human sociology that a disciplined mind just has to step around. So by disappearing, you're entirely removing the friction of other people's opinions, their expectations, and those little subtle sabotages. Okay, let's dive right into how this works, because the execution of it begins with the absolute hardest discipline of all, which is controlling your own mouth. As this quote perfectly highlights, you can change your world by changing your words. Our tongue often betrays us. Sure, sharing information might have been key to our evolutionary survival as a species, but when you're in the pursuit of extraordinary personal transformation, your words become your absolute biggest liability. Every single time you talk about your goals, you are leaking energy and practically inviting interference. Absolute silence, rigidly controlling exactly what you share and who you share it with, is the absolutely crucial first step. The source material lays out this incredibly strict three-phase blueprint for the entire process. Phase 1 is the void. This is where you cut the noise and isolate yourself completely. Phase 2 is the forge. This is where you put your head down and work day and night like a shadow, completely unseen. And finally, Phase 3 is the return, where you reappear entirely transformed. Now, the architecture of this process is absolute. Fail to respect any of these three phases, especially by coming back prematurely or breaking your silence, and the whole transformation just collapses. It is a strictly unforgiving cause and effect reality. Now, to successfully navigate that very first phase, you're going to need a shield. So I want you to memorize this incredibly profound, highly technical phrase. Ready? Nothing special. Haven't thought about it yet. That's it. When people ask you what you're up to, what your big plans are, or where you've been hiding, this exceptionally boring response is your one and only line. It is perfectly mundane, and honestly, that is exactly the point. You have to actively hide every important detail of your life from family, friends, and coworkers. Keep your opinions, your views, and your progress entirely to yourself. You need to become an absolute mystery. Of course, to actually disappear, you first have to dismantle a massive psychological illusion, which is known as the spotlight effect. We usually hesitate to pull away because we suffer from this cognitive bias. We mistakenly believe that everyone is noticing our every move. But let's think about this logically. Everyone is drowning in their own problems, right? Their own insecurities, their own ridiculously busy lives. Literally, no one is watching you that closely. The fear of what others will think if you just suddenly vanish is a total illusion. This bias is just tricking you into acting in ways designed to impress people who really aren't even paying attention. And once you realize that no one is actually watching, you've got to face a pretty harsh truth about reprogramming your mind. You have to stop being a puppet to external validation. This requires prioritizing your own growth ruthlessly, and yes, viciously guarding your time and energy. To really take control of your life, you are going to have to let go of connections that drain your focus. Look, it's not an act of malice. It is simply a lonely, mathematically necessary part of self-mastery. As you isolate yourself and get into the grueling work, this has to become your absolute mantra. Hide your pain, hide your sweat, show only success. Because here's the thing, society does not respect your hard work. They don't care about your late nights, the tears you're shedding, or the constant failures you're enduring. Honestly, they don't want to hear about your quote-unquote journey while you're still struggling. The brutal reality is that the world is only going to respect the undeniable, finished output of your success. So keep your struggles hidden deep in the shadows. And this brilliantly illustrates that exact point. 1,000. That is the literal number of times Thomas Edison failed before he successfully invented the light bulb. But think about it for a second. The world doesn't introduce Edison by his 1,000 failures. Society doesn't care about the dark days he spent messing up in his laboratory. They only remember and they only revere the one massive success that brought light to the world. Your failures are just data points in the dark. Keep them there until the light turns on. We actually see this quiet endurance echoed all across history. Consider Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. His early projects, like the SLV-3 rockets, were initially complete and total failures. But he didn't go out and broadcast his despair to the world or ask for pity. He just continued his relentless efforts right there in the shadows. And when he finally succeeded, he transformed India into a global leader in missile technology. This just reinforces a very stoic reality we all have to accept. One massive, undeniable success will completely erase hundreds of hidden failures. Discipline dictates that we keep those failures strictly private. Now, during this period of hidden work, you are going to start seeing progress. And listen to me, this is exactly where so many people fail. Do not settle for just being above average. It is incredibly foolish to achieve some minor gain, like losing a few pounds or making a tiny bit of extra money, and then immediately post a photo to brag about it to the world. Seeking applause for minor milestones literally kills your momentum. Getting that cheap dopamine hit lowers your true self-worth because you're settling for being just slightly better than average, instead of pushing in total silence for the absolute greatness you actually deserve. So how do we actually structure this hidden work? Well, it starts with a tactile, highly physical, and totally private ritual. You have to write down your exact targets, whether that's clearing a specific entrance exam, building a business, or hitting a certain physique. Write it down, attach actual photos to make it visually real, and then hide them in a place where only you can see them. Your entire existence must now revolve obsessively around these private, hidden goals. Every single hour of your day has to be engineered solely to hit those targets. And to achieve that insane level of obsession, the rules of engagement when you're in ghost mode have to be absolute. Zero distractions. I mean, a complete and total elimination of all modern comforts. No social media, no gaming, no excessive resting, and definitely no binge watching. If you really want to transform into something unrecognizable, you have to demand absolute discipline from yourself. You are cutting off the IV drip of cheap social validation to focus purely, 100%, on that objective you hid in your room. Now, what's really interesting about this side is that it proves this entire concept is governed by pure mathematics. Just look at this comparison. Fighter A trains 14 hours, sleeps 8, and works 2. Fighter B trains 8 hours, sleeps 8, and spends 8 hours just enjoying life. If these two step into a ring, Fighter A is going to inevitably obliterate Fighter B. Input dictates output. The only person on Earth who can beat Fighter A is someone who trained for 15 hours. By disappearing and removing all distractions, you're simply maximizing your input so your output becomes undeniably dominant. And this intense, hidden input leads us right into the final phase, the return. When you finally re-emerge from ghost mode, you're going to possess an unrecognizable level of mental clarity and dominant capability. You will walk out with complete financial stability and this incredible quiet strength. The people who thought they knew you are going to be staring at a completely different person, a transformed version of you that they literally never saw coming, all because you built it entirely in the dark. So the crucial point here is the ultimate realization that happens very quietly, just within your own mind. Because once you emerge, having achieved the impossible in total silence, it's going to hit you. Your original dreams were actually way too small. You're going to find that you have completely outgrown your own expectations. And the beautiful thing is, this doesn't bring complacency. It fuels an eternal hunger. You'll immediately start setting larger, even more impossible goals, pushing yourself further while remaining an absolute mystery to the world outside. Which brings us right to the end of our explainer. Are you actually willing to trade the cheap, fleeting applause of today for the undeniable, massive life of tomorrow? Because true peace and truly extraordinary success are almost never found out there in the spotlight. They are forged in the relentless, disciplined quiet of the dark. The void is waiting. The only question is, are you ready to step into it?